Hi everyone, in today's video we're going to learn how to lay bricks in a herringbone panel. As you can see before you here, I have already built a little wall up to house the panel itself. I'm not going to go into any details about how to build this because I have made quite an extensive amount of videos about how to lay bricks, and there will be a link in the description to the playlist, and also at the end of the video there will be a clickable link so you can check that out at the end of the video. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to go through step by step how to build a herringbone panel. So let's get straight to it. So the first thing we're going to want to do is, once you have your brickwork built and ready to house the panel itself, is you want to measure out the opening width and height and transfer that over to a bit of 20mm hardboard. 855mm. You also want to double check the middle and the top, so it's 855 at the top as well. Sorry, that was out of focus. 855 all the way through. In inches, 33.5 give or take. I'm going to do everything in millimeters because I don't really use inches. Anyway, so 855, so we transfer that over to our board, which I have already got set up. Now what I would suggest is, you can see where I am from the brickwork here that we already have. I would set up a little set of bandstands, and also where your piece of wood is going to be sitting, have it relatively close to where you're working. You don't want to be walking backwards and forwards once you've done your cuts. Okay, so now we have these measurements. We're going to go over there and put them on the board. So the first thing we need to do from here is transfer the sizes of what our panel is going to be onto this bit of wood. So for us it was 855 by 545. Now it's not gauge because the bricks I've used are actually imperial, and it was probably, well, it's an aesthetic choice. But what you have to remember when doing the width, so we'll do the width first. So our width is 855. You have to take off 10mm for either side. So we need to take off in total 20mm, otherwise you're not going to have a joint either side of the panel. So ours will end up to be 835. So we will just come somewhere around about there. Mark one side, 835, mark the other side. So you mark both sides, and then on the top as well, you run that up and do the sides. So I'll just quickly do that now. Okay, so our height is 545. Like I said, it's not gauge because of the bricks I'm using. So what we'll do is we will mark the top, and then 545. We're going to want to take off just 10mm so that we have a joint at the bottom, because the top of the brick doesn't have a joint at the moment, so we just take 10mm off the bottom. So instead of 545, it's 535. So once you have those lines, you mark them down, and then you will have the size of your panel minus the joints, which is exactly what we want. So I'll come back to you once I've marked these lines out. So once you have your lines marked out for the perimeter of your build, again remember minus 10mm for either side, and also minus 10mm for the bottom, so we have the joints. Otherwise, like I said, you'll come unstuck when you come to cutting the bricks. Okay, so from this point we need to find the center point of both the sides, the X and the Y axis, I guess you can call it axis, but the bottom and the two sides and the top. Find the center lines of all four. I say find the center lines, mark the centers of all four. So once you have those marked out, what you need to do is mark a line straight through the middle so you get a cross. There we go, so you got a cross, so you essentially divide it up into 4 sections, and then from there you want to find the 45-degree angle on each one of these. Now, easiest way I like to do it is just with a roofing square. It's very simple, it's got 45 marked on it. So all you need to do is just line that square up and just draw a line, 45. You want to do this with every quarter, every quadrant, every quarter, whatever you want to call it. And then again, you want to mark through, draw a line through those 2 points, straight through the center of that cross that we had already put in a moment ago. So now we have our board all marked out and ready to go. This is the point where we start setting out the bricks. The first brick you need to set out is like so. You want it halfway between the center of the brick, running halfway between one of the 45-degree lines. It can be this way, it can be this way. It all depends which way you want it to go. So I've always just gone like so, halfway between. If you want to be precise, you can measure half a brick and then make a little mark and get that perfectly in line. like so. You want the edge of that brick to be touching that line like so. And that looks good to me. I'm going to have to apologise for the state of some of these bricks. This is like the 5th or 6th build I've used with these bricks, so they might be a little bit scuffed here and there, but hopefully by the time we get the build actually done, it should come up looking good. So again, apologise for the reused bricks. Now from this point, we want to set our next brick down with a 10mm gap here. You sure that's 10mm? Yep, that's a 10mm gap, and with this edge of the brick running along this line here. At this stage, it is very important that you make sure that all of the gaps are exactly where they're going to be when you do the build, because if you have any inaccuracies at this point, it will show through on the build. Like for example, if that was like so, and you put everything else around it, you would have to have that joint there. So you need to make sure that everything is just perfect. So sort of take that little bit of time. Now, you don't have to use a tape measure by doing this. You can just cut off a few 10mm spacers from an old bit of wood, or if you've got any 10mm spacers lying around, perfect time to use them. But I like to use my Fisco brick tape. And from this point, it is just go around the whole build, 10mm everywhere, and just run them all through dry. Just set them all through, and then we'll come back and I'll show you how to mark off and cut them, so that you've got the bricks ready to do your panel. So what I'll do is I'll go through now and make sure all of these are in the right place, and then I'll come back to you. So once you have your bricks all set out in the pattern that you are happy with, we can move on to marking the line around the outside. But before we go ahead to that, I don't know if you noticed in that little time lapse, I was using a roofing square to get the angles of these bricks as close to 45 as I could possibly get it. Now, with a lot of bricks, sometimes you can get banana bricks. They do bend. Their shapes aren't 100, their sizes aren't 100% correct throughout the whole brick selection. Some bricks are a lot worse than others. These aren't so bad, but the ones in the panel that I built ready to put this in, those bricks are completely all over the place. But there are some of these where they aren't 100% square. Now, what you have to do in that situation is just use your best guess. Like some of these are slightly bigger than 10mm. Like for example, this one here is 12mm. So you have to use your best guess and just take a step back, have a look, and make sure that you're happy with how it looks. There are a couple of small little cuts here, which I haven't marked out yet, but I'm basically, all I'm going to do is just take my pencil, mark them on the board and cut them afterwards, because like I said, my board is a bit too small for this. As you can see, I'll put some cuts in here already. It's just a little bit too small. So I'd advise having a board that's probably about 200mm or half a foot or whatever it is, 300mm maybe, bigger than your actual panel, so that you can have the bricks sit on there nice and sound. So once we are at this point, what we need to do is we need to mark the marks that are down on the board. We need to transfer them up onto these bricks. So this can be quite tricky, but where I have left out a few holes here and there, that does make life a little bit easier. But generally all you do is you have a look through between the two bricks and use your best guess and mark off where you think the best place for that line to go would be. So in this case, I'm going to do that right now. I'll mark them off, and then what we're going to do is we're going to get the level, and we'll put the level straight across it, mark that off, and then that will give you the line for you to cut your bricks. You couldn't really use, well, I suppose you could probably use a boat level to plumb that up, but in my experience, I find that doing it by eye is pretty good. But if you do want to be very precise with it, then by all means use a boat level, go through and plumb them up. I should be telling you to do that in the first place, because that is the correct way to do it, to get it nice and precise. I suppose once you've been laying bricks as long as I have, you sort of get an eye for it really. But that's not me saying that my eyes are made by Stabila. They most definitely are not. But the option is there. Okay, so once you've marked off those edges, all you do, take your level. Again, links in the description for all the tools that I use if you are interested. There are Amazon affiliate links. So if you do decide to purchase anything through a link in the description, Amazon will give me a little cutback. It costs absolutely no extra for you guys, and it does go to help what I do on this channel. Like, for example, I have to buy bricks and things like that, so every penny helps. So if you do want to pick up some tools, and I'd appreciate it if you pop down there, have a look, check out, see what I use, and if there's anything that tickles your pickle that you fancy, like I say, it goes to help me pick up some bricks for this channel and bring you the content that I do. So it'd be greatly appreciated. Again, links in the description. Now, when it comes to cutting these bricks, there are multiple different ways of doing it. The best way you can cut these bricks to get nice, clean, crisp bricks is with a wet saw or a table bench cutting saw, but I know not everyone has got one of those, including me. I do not have one. I think I should get one. I've actually been looking into getting a few because the amount of cuts I do on this channel is sort of, it's a bit mad really. And I'm currently, believe it or not, cutting my bricks with a 4-inch grinder, which, well, this only cost me 35 quid. Bauer, link in the description. And it's quite, I'm getting used to it, to be honest, which is probably not a good thing for me to say, because my Husqvarna petrol grinder, which I must say is the best grinder I've ever used, link in the description, is in need for a service. It's sort of coughing and spluttering a little bit, and to be perfectly honest with you, I haven't serviced it since I've owned it, which is bad because I've had it about 5 or 6 years. So I need to order a service kit for it. But anyway, so the best way you can cut these bricks is with a bench saw, like a table saw. But failing that, you can use a small grinder like that, or the slightly larger 9-inch one. You can use a hammer and bolster. I wouldn't advise it for this because you will probably end up snapping them. Like these bricks here, I cut with a hammer and bolster, and some of them just snapped off. You need to make sure your bolster is incredibly sharp before you do it, but I would definitely advise using a grinder of some sort. I'm going to use that little one, but basically those are your lines to cut. Now what I would suggest you do is just sort of go around clockwise, anti-clockwise, doesn't really matter which way around you go, but once you bring that brick off, cut it, put it back in the same place. Now this is a reason why I say have this bench that I'm working on very close to where you're building. You can't see it, it's on screen, off screen at the moment, but I'm not even 6 feet away from the build, so that you can have this panel set up right here, and when you build, you just pick it up and go as you want to. So you leave this like so, and you go and pick a brick up at a time. So yep, I'm going to go around, I'll cut all these bricks, put them back, and we will be ready to lay. Right, so once you have all of your bricks cut and set out, ready to go into the panel, what you need to do is get a piece of batten like I have here, set it up so it's 10 mil in from the end of this brick, so that is going to be where the joint is. Oh, move that. That is going to be where the joint is on this side, and also obviously have it long enough so that it can run over 10 mil this side. Now what we need to do is we need to go along and mark off all the joints on this piece of batten. I'll do it in a second once I'm off camera. So we mark off all the joints along here, because we're going to put this piece of timber across the bottom, this bottom course of brick here, and mark off so we know exactly where each joint is going to be on the bottom. So once we have our piece of wood like so, with all the black markings on there for the joints, I like to fill the marks out solid so I know which is a joint and which is a brick. All you do is you match up the two ends to the bottom course and just mark those out on that brickwork. So that's exactly what I'm going to do right now. Then once you have those marked out on there, I like to just go down the face of the brick. Because it's pencil, it can come off, so it's not the end of the world. Just mark those down the bricks, because by the time you put muck on the top, you ain't going to see any of these black bits. It's just that as you go along, it's good to have those marks on there so that you can see where you're going. But yeah, if you mark it down the front, you're pretty much, you're certain you're going to see them. Well, once you have marked off all the joints on the bottom and on the face of the brick as well, we're good to get a bit of muck and start laying a few bricks, get this panel going. Right, so I've got a bit of muck ready, and I have also taken the liberty of putting a string line up on a couple of corner blocks. Now this is pretty much just to keep everything straight and make sure that everything is in line so we don't get any brickwork leaning in and out, left, right, up or down. So what we need to do is you need to keep at hand a boat level, and also I like to use a roofing square, but something at 45 degrees, so that when we build up, you can put the set square in between the bricks, level it across the top, and that will tell you that your V is 45 degrees. You can also use boat levels that have got adjustable vials, so you can set it to 45 degrees and do it that way, but it's completely up to you. I don't have one of those boat levels. I've only got this Cat Pro boat level here, but yeah, they work just as well as each other. So what we're going to do, keep those to hand. What we're going to do is you want to start with the smallest pieces and then work your way up, because if you put a big bit in, it's just going to flop around all over the place. Those first few go in first. You don't need to use your 45 just yet, because these just plonk in. As long as they're all pretty much level, then that's a good start. Now for this one, I am just going to do a 10mm bed, because some of these are a little bit different sizes to one another. So as long as this goes in and the bottom of the brick, it's sort of like the opposite way that you would lay bricks. Rather than putting it on the top arris, I'm doing it on the bottom, just so that it keeps these just in line. I'll put miles too much mortar there, but I'll leave it there because we'll be putting some more in a minute. And there we go. If you're unsure of how to lay bricks to a line, then check out the Bricklaying for Beginners playlist. Like I said earlier, I will leave it linked down in the description, and also there will be a tag at the end, so that you can just click on the tag at the end of the video and it will take you straight into the playlist. Okay, so next up we are going to have just the next size brick, and these are all just gonna, this one needs buttering. I was going to say they don't need buttering yet, but this one does. So that one is going to go in there. Again, I am going to just go to that bottom arris, so that that 10mm bed is the same throughout. It's quite time consuming doing this. You want to make sure that what you're doing is right. So it is very fiddly. This is not something you can slam hundreds of bricks in an hour, or I shouldn't say an hour, sorry, hundreds of bricks in a day. It's just not going to happen. This is precise work. That's a little bit out. This is precise work. So it's something that you can probably charge more money for, because it takes a lot longer to do. Right, so once they are all in, we need to check to make sure they're all 45s. So we'll just take out all the excess muck. I probably shouldn't have put that excess muck in, but hey ho, such is life. Just get that on there, check them, make sure they're all right, and then we'll move on to the next ones. I'm tempted to pull that one out a bit, because that is just, that's not sitting right, that one. I might have to point that one in the end, because that is just, it needs to be smaller than that. So I might just point that in afterwards. Right, that needs to come down a bit. There's a lot of faffing around with this, but it does not come up nice at the end. It needs to be changed around a bit. So essentially, all you do from here on out is you put a brick in, like I am here, like so. Put your 45 on there, check it, that's a bit out. So you adjust it. It's probably easier if you use the boat level with an adjustable vial, because as you can see, I'm having to hold the angle. It's just that bit there. I'm having to hold the roofing square with the boat level on it, and it can be a little bit of a faff, really. Whereas if you have the adjustable vial, then all you do is just plonk that on there. If it says 45 degrees, it's good for 45 degrees. That isn't adjustable, is it? No, I'm just having to make sure that's not an adjustable one. It's a new boat level. So that needs to go in a fraction, like so. Much better. Right, so then we move along to the next one and just keep going along like that. Make sure everything's at 45 degrees and you are looking good. So we'll put the next one in here. Once it's started off, you're pretty much laughing. It's just the first couple of bits that are a bit tricky. But once you're off and running, it's just a case of making sure you're getting it right, really. It's not too bad. Right, so there's a start. What I'll do is I'll go through a few, probably put it on time lapse for a little bit because there's not really much more I can say apart from that at the moment. So I'll just time lapse a few more, and then when I come to another stage, I'll show you a little bit more. So from here, again, all you do is you check your angles. That's 45 degrees. Check these along, that's 45 degrees with the boat level. So from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a few more of just me laying them, because with a time lapse, you probably aren't going to see all the little details going into it. So I'm just going to lay a few. I might not be talking too much, so I might just pop some music over the top of this, and hopefully you can see a little bit more of what goes into it, sort of at a slower speed. I'm just going to lay a few here. Hopefully you guys and gals can learn something as we go along.
Out in stormy weather, I might have the blues, but nothing ever stopped me from dusting off my shoes. You might think you'll see me falling to the ground, but I threw up my umbrella when rain stops hitting town. Yeah! On a bad day, on a good day, I don't need no sunshine, 'cause I'm dancing with the rain. You will see me running, thinking I might be insane. I don't need no sunshine, you keep me going strong. I just need my happy face to keep me moving on. Looking out the window, reflecting who I am. No one ever stopped me, not even Uncle Sam. Life might be a struggle, life might be a fight, but I am here to show the world that I can make it right. On a bad day, on a good day, on a bad day, rain keeps raining.
And there we go, one panel. What I've done is I've just put 2 cores straight through the top to finish that off nicely. Now there are two ways you can finish the top, like you saw how I did. I had already pre-cut the tops, but if you are a little bit unsure, then what you can do is you can leave the tops, and as you're laying the last cores, put them in, mark them on the string line and cut them like that. That's another way of doing it. If anyone out there is going to have a go at one of these, then please do tag me over on Instagram at rodin_builds, because it would be interesting to see some of your work. If you're interested in learning how to lay bricks, then click this playlist here. If you're interested in watching me building a 3-bedroom house completely by myself, click this playlist here. Make sure you check out down below for the merch, and I will see you all in the next episode. So take care, and I'll see you then. Ta-ra.